Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing the actual severity of climate change, the reality of climate change, the onslaught of information that is coming at us about how bad and how fast climate change is quickly going to be affecting us. And I'm going to get to two articles in this video. First, I'm going to read something from Nick Humphrey, who has just been pumping out a lot of stuff. Climate change is more extensive and worse than once thought, and this is something that he wrote, The Incomprehension of Acceleration, November 30th. This is from his Patreon page. This is a moment when one has to say, no shit, Sherlock, to the blatantly obvious. We as humans, I think, cannot appreciate the speed at which the planet is shifting to more extreme conditions, but it's probably even harder for anyone to grasp, given that we're compressing multi-millennial changes into decadal and now multi-year scales. For even scientists, it's hard to imagine a period of stability and normalcy flip like a switch, even if the data and our conclusions say such. There is evidence of facts, but then there's the experience. I don't know about anyone else, but I feel a weird foreboding. Beyond the obvious atmospheric changes, it's the biological and ecological conditions, collapse of arthropods, freshwater species, phytoplankton, the roasting of corals and increasing marine heat waves, the dissolving seafloor from acidification, the mass death and burning of forests worldwide. These processes have been accelerating for decades, but it seems like the consequences of human excess and arrogance are all converging. The economy is on the brink of collapse, and collapse is already long underway with global ecology. It is all beginning to show itself before the eyes of humans and our daily and seasonal routines. My feelings are beyond the numbers. It's the type of complex contemplation which can only be approximated by a feeling one has before a severe storm, as the clouds are gathering and the wind is uncomfortably still. Again, I'm not sure any of us are truly appreciating what is happening before us, not sure our brains are evolved to. Good stuff from Nick Humphrey, and I'm going to read from this article. I don't know if I'm going to do the whole thing because it is fairly long, but this is going, this is another take on the, the UN is sitting down for an annual climate conference this week in Poland. So this is titled Portrait of a Planet on the Verge of Climate Catastrophe, and this is by Robin McKee from December 2nd. As the UN sits down for its annual climate conference this week, many experts believe we have passed the point of no return. On Sunday morning, hundreds of politicians, government officials, and scientists will gather in the grandeur of the International Congress Center in Katowice, Poland. I think I'm messing that up. It will be a familiar experience for many. For 24 years, the annual UN Climate Conference has served up a reliable diet of rhetoric, backroom talks, and dramatic last-minute deals aimed at halting global warming. But this year's will be a grimmer affair by far, as recent reports have made clear the world may no longer be hovering at the edge of destruction, but has probably staggered beyond a crucial point of no return. Climate catastrophe is now looking inevitable. We have simply left it too late to hold rising global temperatures to under 1.5 C and so prevent a future of drowned coasts, ruined coral reefs, spreading deserts, and melted glaciers. One example was provided last week by a UN report that revealed attempts to ensure fossil fuel emissions peak by 2020 will fail. Indeed, the target will not even be reached by 2030. Another by the World Meteorological Organization said the past 4 years had been the warmest on record and warned that global temperatures could easily rise by 3 to 5 C by 2100, well above that sought-after goal of 1.5 C. The UK will not be exempt either. The Met Office said summer temperatures could now be 5.4 C hotter by 2070. At the same time, prospects of reaching global deals to halt emissions have been weakened by the spread of right-wing populism, not much to smile about in Katowice. Nor will the planet's woes end in 2100, although most discussions use the year as a convenient cutoff point for describing Earth's likely fate. The changes we have already triggered will last well beyond the date, said Svetlana Javorjeva at the National Oceanography Center, Liverpool. I just had a brain freeze like crazy. She has studied sea level rises that will be triggered by melting ice sheets and expanding warm seawater in a world 3 to 5 feet hotter than it was in pre-industrial times, and concludes that these could reach 0.74 to 1.8 meters by 2100. This would be enough to deluge Pacific and Indian Ocean island states and displace millions from Miami, Guangzhou, Mumbai, and other low-lying cities. The total cost to the planet could top 11 trillion pounds. Even when the seas will not stop rising, Georgieva added, they will continue to climb for centuries, even after greenhouse gas levels have been stabilized. We could experience the highest ever global sea level rise in the history of human civilization. That's assuming we're all still here. Vast tracts of prime real estate will be destroyed. At a time when land will be needed with unprecedented desperation, Earth's population stands at 7 billion today and is predicted to rise to 9 billion by 2050 and settle at over 11 billion by 2100. Knee slapper there and a belly laugh too on that one. When climate change will have wrecked major ecosystems and turned farmlands to dust bowls, I don't know how 9 billion people could be alive. I don't know how 7 billion people could be alive. I don't know how 3 billion people could be alive, but that's another story. Unfortunately, many experts believe Earth's population will actually peak well beyond 11 billion. Hardy har. It could reach 15 billion, said Sarah Harper of Oxford's Institute of Population Aging. Are you serious? All sorts of factors suggest women, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, will still want to have relatively high numbers of children, and this might keep the world's population approaching 15 billion rather than 12 billion. The world will have double its present numbers, but with hugely reduced areas of fertile land to provide food. Just how, guys? Why are you saying this? How can you even say these things? We're going to grow less food. We're going to have crop failures, and a lot of people are not going to be alive then. So we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it to 9. I doubt we'll make it to 9 billion. I'll bet somebody $5 we don't make 9 billion people. It never happens. In the past few years, climate change has killed 70% of its livestock and forced tens of thousands of families to flee from its scorched interior to live in refugee camps. You can touch it, the climate change in Somaliland. It is real, it is here. The country's environment minister, Shukri Ismail Bandare, said in the Financial Times last week, Sudan and Kenya are also victims of a drought. It has dried the Horn of Africa faster than at any time in the past 2,000 years. Similarly, in Vietnam, thousands a year are abandoning the once fertile Mekong Delta as rising seawater pollutes paddy fields. By 2050, the World Bank says more than 140 million will become climate refugees. It will be bad for humans, but catastrophic for Earth's other inhabitants. Oh, those other inhabitants. Arctic ice loss threatens polar bears, droughts imperil monarch butterflies, and koala habitats are being destroyed by bushfires. In all, about a sixth of all species now face extinction, say scientists, although in the end, no creature or plant will be safe. Even the most resilient species will inevitably fall victim as extreme stresses drive ecosystems to collapse, said Giovanni Strona of Europe's Joint Research Center in a report last week on climate change. Scientists warned more than 30 years ago that such a future lay ahead, but nothing was done to stave it off. Only dramatic measures are now left to those seeking to save our burning planet, and these can have grim political consequences. In France, for example, President Macron's new levies on fossil fuels introduced to cut emissions and to fund renewable energy projects triggered riots. Had only modest changes been enacted a few decades ago, there would be no trouble today, say analysts. But the most telling example is provided by the US, which has emitted about a third of the carbon responsible for global warming. Yet it has essentially done nothing to check its annual rises in output. Lobbying by fossil fuel industry has proved highly effective at blocking political change, a point most recently demonstrated by groups such as the Competitive Enterprise Institute and the Heartland Institute, which helped persuade President Trump to pull out of the Paris Agreement. And probably somewhere in there, there's some money flowing to all those Adapt 2030 channels and all those denier channels out there. I'm sure those fools are getting funding somehow, even though they don't need it, because, you know, thousands of people are like, oh yeah, totally, thus dashing the planet's last hope of ecological salvation. The coalition used its power to slow us down precisely at the moment when we needed to speed up, said the environmentalist Bill McKibben in the New Yorker. As a result, the particular politics of one country for 1/2 century will have changed the geological history. Politics of one country for 1/2 century will have changed the geological history of the Earth. Ouch. They're going through some regions of problems, and I don't know if I can read all this, but I'm going to just quickly skip through these. And Florida, no region of the U.S. has more to lose from climate change than southern Florida if scientists' worst predictions are realized. An entire metropolitan area currently inhabited by more than 6 million people is likely to be swamped by a 1.5 meter sea level rise before the end of the century, or how about, you know, in about 2 decades. A rise that could see the tourist mecca of Miami simply disappear. They are already having king tides due to sea level rise. Moving on, well, let's say up to 1 million Florida homes worth an estimated $371 billion are at risk of tidal flooding by 2100, one recent study calculated. But the threats facing the greater Miami region are not just coastal. Hurricanes are becoming more powerful because of global warming, say scientists, who point to the destruction wrought by Hurricane Michael in October. While a combination of a low water table and high king tides occurring in autumn causes regular inland flooding even on dry days. This means that the new joint action plan being worked on by the city and county officials has to be further reaching than anything that has preceded it. Torienti says, our resilience journey began with the climate work, the stormwater, but this strategy will be much broader and will be defining resilience not only in terms of climate and flooding, but also mobility and housing, property, and how to recover quickly in the event of a hurricane in South Florida. How about leave? Madagascar in a 45-minute canoe journey. It's a 45-minute canoe journey along the coast from regional capital Morombe to Cavallo in southwest Madagascar. Children frolic in the water, palm trees sway, and fishing nets hang along the beach. This tranquility is deceptive, however. For Madagascar is ranked as one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change. Higher temperatures, extended drought periods in the south, intensification of cyclones, and rising sea levels are all forecast. For good measure, the country's pervasive poverty restricts its capacity to adapt to such changes. Antarctica. It is hard to get a grip of the sheer scale of the Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica. It's more than 300 miles long and 200 wide, and more than 1 mile thick. It drains an area of ice that is larger than England and stealthily slides toward the sea by several meters every day. Only from satellite images have we understood the shape and the power of this ice monster. These now show the beast is waking up. Thwaites' uptake of falling snow was once matched fairly finely by snow and ice being lost as icebergs. Now it has begun to flow faster along with its neighboring glaciers. More ice is being lost into the ocean than is being replaced, speeding up global sea level rise. Great Barrier Reef. Coral reefs cover a mere 0.1% of the world's ocean floor, but they support about 25% of all marine species. They also provide nature with some of its most beautiful vistas. For good measure, coral reefs protect shorelines from storms, support the livelihoods of 500 million people, and help generate about 25 billion pounds of income. Permitting their destruction would put the planet in trouble, which is precisely what humanity is doing. I'm going to link this article below. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time. Peace.